Heyo, and what's going on, Belly Up Nation out there? You are back for the BUFL Football Edition every other Tuesday night from 8:30 until whenever the hell we feel like it, quite frankly. Guys, what is going on? This is our first time we've all gotten together since the NFL draft stream, which is a huge success. You saw all of us on there at different times or another. I want to thank Adam and Chad a bunch for coming on during that and multiple occasions because they're a big reason why I had the success that it had. And now we're back. Chad is going to be one of our permanent hosts of this show moving forward. We're excited to have that. Chad, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, guys. How about yourself?
Doing great. Excited to get into our episode today, which of course is going to be our post-NFL draft rookie startup mock draft. I know it's a mouthful, but the one difference we're going to have between this and the episode we had right before the draft is that this will be a super flex league. I got a lot of feedback about people wanting it to be super flex. It's about half and half when it comes to dynasty leagues, one quarterback, just one quarterback, or they have the super flex. We're going to get into the super flex, the value of it, so people have a good idea as they're going through startups, because this is prime startup dynasty season. Before we get into all that, though, Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you today? Excited to be here after the draft. Get to see where we actually stand with these rookies this year now.
Yeah, and I actually thought we did pretty well our pre-rookie mock draft, with where a lot of the guys that we selected wound up at. Adam, what did you think, and what are maybe some observations you had coming out of the draft? Were you happy about it? Were you sad about it? Were you angry about it? Give me some feelings on that draft for you.
I think it was a mixed bag. There were some guys where I liked the landing spot, and some a little less so. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm really glad to be on. Really glad to be talking Superflex. I had one of my startup drafts last weekend, and I've got another this weekend, so I feel pretty prepared.
How'd you do?
I feel really good about the one I just had.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man.
Really
I'm going to sprinkle that little magic on us as we go through this. Before we dive into our mock draft on the day, though, I want you guys to know that today's show is brought to you by Manscaped, and I actually have to hit this drop first.
Breaking news.
They want you to know that this is breaking news because it's an important PSA that's brought to you by Manscaped.com. This is your public service announcement and the news that you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is now available for purchase in the USA and in Canada. I actually just got one, no lie, used it in the shower. It was amazing because I had no cleanup whatsoever to have to deal with. And everyone, myself, my wife, everybody was appreciative of that fact, especially. This new trimmer that was all released, it was just released a couple of weeks ago, actually. They're just now out for purchase. Has now joined the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. All you have to do to get the Lawnmower 4.0 is go to manscaped.com, put in the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY, get 20% off and free shipping on your order. Trust me, the product works. Trust me, you want it. It has a new sleek finish. It has a flashlight, the nice blade that you can put in the water. Everything about it is just exactly what every man would want for his nether regions. So make sure you guys go to manscaped.com, do promo code BELLYUPFANTASY, get 20% off and free shipping on your purchase today. It'll be one of the best purchases you ever make. I personally guarantee it because they thankfully sent me one, and I am very, very appreciative. So, all right, guys, let's get into our mock draft as I try to pull it up here. Now, I actually haven't looked to see where everybody's selected. Did we all select about the same area? Because I know I did.
I mean, I don't know. I'm right before somebody else. I think so.
I think I'm about the same spot.
I went with my actual draft position this year. I can definitely go back to 1-2, I believe.
You're the only one, Dan, nowhere near us.
I don't mind that you picked a different spot. I was just kind of curious to see, comparing where we were last time to now. So as it's pulling up for me, here we go. So we have Chris Dehauer in front of one spot in front of Adam because he wants to snipe Adam all day long. They're both at the one. They're both in the middle of the round. Now, this is going to be a startup rookie draft, and why I have to make sure that's clear is that this will be a snake draft because it's a startup rookie draft, which, by the way, if you are a commissioner of a dynasty league, is the only fair way to do rookie drafts. Some people, I've been in some startups where they try to do it linear, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why are you doing it linear? We're all starting up. Make sure it's even. So that's my advice to you guys. Chad's at the 108. which means he'll be back at the 2-5 on the way back. And then I went with my pick that I had last time, which is the back end of the first round, the 112, and the first pick in the second round. So again, this is a super flex league, which means quarterback's going to have a lot more value. So it's going to be really interesting. That's why I wanted to stay in my spot, because I'm going to be in a position where I'm not going to get any of the quarterbacks. So I kind of want to see how this winds up going. But judging for where we are, none of us might get the quarterbacks except for maybe Chris. We'll see exactly what happens here with where we selected. So let's start the draft, fellas. Hopefully we don't have an issue like we did last time where we had the computer taking defensive players for absolutely no reason. I
don't mind
I adjusted the settings. Yeah. Well, yeah, because we had a bunch of guys that dropped to us, right, Chad?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if I could just make the computer select, that would be awesome as well. While that's going on, Chris, off the top of your head, who was one of the guys that benefited the most from the NFL draft?
I mean, I think Michael Carter in the New York Jets. Looking at kind of where he landed, he's got opportunity to start. You got Tevin Coleman, who historically gets banged up by week 4 or 5, and then you have a guy who maybe when he gets out there could be taking over the lead role. And I think that some other people have benefited with the draft were the Atlanta Falcons, like Davis. I think because they didn't draft a running back necessarily or make really threaten his job, I think he looks like he's standing pretty good in the backfield by himself right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. That was one of the guys that we were big on. Also, glad to know who Chris might be targeting in the second round. Everyone, Adam especially, put that out there because for you, that's going to be brutal.
Mess with me, Adam.
Trying to get this thing going. Hold on. I got people letting me left and right. This thing's a mess. It won't pick. I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulties. Boo on the host. Where's the boo button? Where's the boo button? Yeah, we're booing myself here. All right, I think I have it set up.
Look at this. Look at this.
There we go. Okay, Chris, you're on the clock. We'll talk about the picks that just came off the board. So this is Super Flex League, and yet none of the computer players went with a quarterback. Jamar Chase comes off at the 101. We'll get to that. That's interesting. Najee Harris at the 102. Travis Etienne at the 103. Jalen Waddle at the 104. Those are the first 4 picks. Chris, are you picking because you're on the clock?
I am picking.
So Jamar Chase 101. Chad, give me your reaction to that.
I mean, it's a solid pick, but considering this is super flex, I think quarterbacks are gold. You got to get those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in this pretty quick. But I don't fault anyone for taking Jamar Chase or Harris in the 1 or 2. Honestly, I don't. Those are excellent players who are going to have good years right from the get-go.
With these 4 players, there's an interesting name that didn't come off the board, and that was Kyle Pitts. So I'm kind of wondering what ADP they're working off of here. Adam, wouldn't you? I mean, I would think you would take Kyle Pitts over Travis Etienne at the very least, no?
Yeah, I've seen him in one of the drafts I had. I think he went off at 5. Was the first non-quarterback taken, and for instance, Waddle and Etienne were both at the back of the first round. So I am definitely surprised to see him available, and then those other guys taken. Najee a little bit less so, and Chase, but definitely Waddle and Etienne.
Yeah, Chris, you and I talked about Travis Etienne on the MD's Fantasy Football Show from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network every Friday, and we talked about how Urban Meyer is lying his ass off when he says
he's not only a third down back.
Exactly. That James Robinson and Carlos Hyde are going to be the 1-2 punch, while Travis Etienne, I drafted him in the first round to be my third down specialist. What are you talking about? What is Travis Etienne's real value for 2021 in your estimation?
I think probably like around an RB3. I think you look at kind of what DeAndre Swift did last year. I could kind of pin him in a similar situation. I don't think he necessarily has a great start to the season. Probably a guy you do want on your roster at the end of the season. I think you're going to see him used kind of in a gadget role probably in the beginning, and then as the season progresses, I think he'll be the lead back eventually.
Eventually or at the start?
I think eventually.
Here's a better question. Do you think he'll have more carries than James Robinson by the end of the year?
It'll be close. Like I said, I look at the Detroit situation, and I think it's very similar in a lot of ways last year, where DeAndre Swift came in a situation where he didn't get most of the touches early in the season. You saw a lot of Kerryon Johnson. You saw a lot of Adrian Peterson rotated in there. I think you're going to see a similar kind of split and as the season progresses, you're going to see ETN become the guy similar to DeAndre Swift became the man down the stretch.
Yeah, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking, in my mind anyway, the way this sets up, and at least for the first half of the year, as you go on to the year, barring injuries or maybe Travis Etienne taking over, I don't know. But for at least the first half of the year, in my mind, is a 60-40 split when it comes to the carries between Robinson and Etienne, favoring Robinson. But then on reverse, a 60-40 split in favor of Travis Etienne, maybe 65-35 when it comes to the passing. Chad, do you disagree or agree with that at all?
Well, you know what? I was actually reading something interesting on the coach there. He comes from the Belichick line, and he's been quoted many times saying he loves to use multiple running backs. So I think it's going to be a pretty even split. I wouldn't be surprised if ETN comes out on top, but I don't think he's going to come out on top by a lot.
Adam, Jalen Waddle went at the 4. When you look at a Jalen Waddle, and let's compare him to Devonta Smith because that's fun to do because they come from Alabama. Why not? But because of the fit Devonta Smith fell into, we're 2021 right now. I'm kind of doing my preliminary projections. He's my top ranked rookie wide receiver for 2021, not for Dynasty, but for 2021 because of the situation he found himself in with the volume. Is that enough for you to want to take a Waddle over Devonta Smith for the long haul? Is he in that much of a better situation? Or because Devonta Smith has a chance to be the number one pass catcher on his team right away, would you go his way for now and the future?
I think you can go either way. I think at that point, it's pretty much up to preference as to which one you preferred as a prospect. For me personally, what I'm trying to do in my drafts is to let other people make that decision for me. I'm trying to, if I see, hey, like these 3 guys that I all like at this pick they're gonna be there. I'm just gonna get back 3 picks, and whichever one's left, I'm getting that one. I did that. I traded my 106, got your picks, the 112 and 201, and I got Waddle at 12. And I think this is a great draft to be trying to trade back in the first round because people will overvalue their guys in the first round. And, you can get some pretty good deals just, picking up those guys, especially if you don't need a quarterback.
Yeah, I had a question the other day, and we have a mailbag segment Chris and I do for the MD Standing Football Show every single week, and I had an interesting question. I'm going to put it on now because we're not going to probably use it on Friday, Chris. He said he has the 103, but he doesn't need a quarterback, and it's a super flex league. And to me, I was like, that screams trade back, trade back, trade back, trade back. Because if you don't need a quarterback in that situation, for that 103, you might be able to get 2, maybe 3 picks, possibly not only get that team's first rounder, but they have 2 second rounders. There's a good chance you can get 2 second rounders, first, second, third round. But it's a time to trade back and get ammunition because there's a lot of value later on this first round, especially if you don't need a quarterback, in my estimation. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to unpause the draft. Chris, you're going to talk about your pick at the 105.
Well, I was shocked this guy was still on the board. I went with Trevor Lawrence.
Who has their sound effects on?
I guess that might be me. Sorry. I didn't realize we had sound effects. I had my volume up. I went with Trevor Lawrence. It was a no-brainer to me. We're talking about a super flex. You want to get the quarterbacks and shot the computers, doing some odd stuff at the beginning. But hey, I'll take it. This guy's my favorite prospect in this draft. The quarterbacks I love Zach Wilson. But fantasy-wise, this guy runs, he throws. He's going to be on an offense that's going to be able to primarily feature him in a lot of different ways. And then you have a terrible defense on the other side of the ball. I don't see Jacksonville being necessarily a competitor anytime soon. But I do think they're going to be a team that's going to start scoring points, and I'm excited to have him on my team.
Well, and I had this stat for you. Had Joe Burrow from weeks 1 through 8 was a QB9. Justin Herbert finishes the QB9 on the season. Tua Tagovailoa in his second starter stint that I like to say because he missed week 12, I believe it was, that 1 week in between due to injury. When he came back weeks 13 through 17, he was QB 11. So everybody was, they crap on Tua all the time, but they didn't realize at the end of the season, Tua actually played pretty well, especially from a fantasy standpoint, and was doing so at that time with nothing but Mike Gesicki and Lynn Bowden. But these are all rookie quarterbacks who had a lot of success from a fantasy standpoint. Trevor Lawrence, he's going to run more than Joe Burrow. He's going to throw just as much as Justin Herbert. He has just as many weapons, frankly, as those guys do, because I think it's one thing that keeps getting overlooked with Jacksonville. there's a case to be made that Trevor Lawrence, if he starts all 16, 17 games, whatever the case may be now, that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. What do you think, Chad?
I think he has. I think he has everything to do it. He has the. Yeah, they brought in a pass catching running back who's going to be a safety net for him. They brought in Tim Tebow. That'll be his quarterback consultant, tight end. I mean, they have amazing wide receivers that they have on that team, and they all offer different excellent skill sets. And he has everything there for him to have year one fantasy production. So I think I don't know about top 10, but I'm thinking top 15. I could see him. He's in my top 15.
Okay. Being a little bit conservative, I'm going to be bullish on that one. We'll get back to that, Chad. Don't you? We'll have some battles on that one. I do want to say real quickly, though, just to talk about the Tebow point. Ryan Clark from ESPN, I was watching that NFL live show. He's very, very, very salty that Tim Tebow is getting a shot to play in the NFL again. Rightfully so for a lot of the reasons that he pointed out. I don't want to get to it on this show because we're more of a fantasy show, but I just kind of want to point out I thought that was hysterical. And by the way, I completely agree with him as well. So I'm going to unpause the draft. Adam, you go ahead and talk about your pick at the 106.
Yeah. So I mean, as we've spoke on this show before, I was always a fan of Fields, the prospect, more. That being said, I've so surprised I'm going to say this, but the Bears drafted so well that I'm afraid it might keep Matt Nagy's job, and I don't want no part of that. I am staying all the way away from that. And I loved the Jets draft as well. I think Zach Wilson's going to have a lot of weapons that fit with him really well early on. So I'm just going to I'm going to take him, and I like it. I loved both of them anyways. So I think situationally with those two being close as prospects for me, I think I can take the better situation there.
Or maybe it was my internet connection. I don't know. But I was trying to give you a round of applause, Adam, because a lot of people right now are trying to make this case that because Justin Fields went to the Bears and has a legitimate shot to start week 1, which he does, and I think he actually should start week 1 if Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are serious about saving their jobs. But a lot of people are trying to make the case that Justin Fields has to be drafted as the number 2 quarterback off the board in your dynasty league right after Trevor Lawrence. And I cannot disagree with that more. Chris, back me up on that.
Oh, you put me on the spot here. I wanted to back you up. I'm a Bears hater, but just to point out both of you guys, Mitchell Trubisky was actually effective for the Bears from running. He's ran the ball. I think as long as he got opportunity to run the ball there, you got to kind of look at taking him number 2. I love Wilson, love his upside. So I mean, it's definitely a debate. I don't think it's a no-brainer that you take him number 2, but I do think it is somebody you have to consider because although I hate Matt Nagy, I do have to say they use a lot of RPO action, and he's going to have a chance to run. Will Trubisky do it his rookie second year?
You're supposed to back me up. You didn't back me up.
I wanted to back you up, man. But I look at that team, and I'm just like, yeah, but I hate Trubisky. I hate Nagy, but they both were productive their first 2 years together, and I think when we look at talent-wise, Fields is head and shoulders better than Trubisky ever is going to be.
What good are you? I mean, seriously, what good are you?
I'm sorry. I think it's debate, though. The debate's okay.
Chad, I'm going to let you talk about 2 picks. I'm going to let you talk about your pick, but also the pick that went right before you at the 107 with Kyle Pitts. What kind of value you think that is from a dynasty standpoint for him going at the 107?
Tight end is such a crapshoot to begin with. If you're having one of the highest ranked prospects in history come into the league, I think at this point it's a fair argument to grab Pitts after Lawrence and Wilson's off the table. I'm a Wilson believer. I think the Jets are going to be an incredible team this year compared to where they were. I mean, I know the bar's not very high, but they still have I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm really hoping to get my my Jets player in the second round here.
Now your quarterback, Trey Lance, in 108. So you went Trey Lance over Justin Fields as well. Let's hear that one.
Yeah, I was going for Pitts. If Pitts was there, I was going to grab him. But unfortunately, Mr. Sutton there got him. So I believe in I believe in Shanahan. I believe in the system. I love the West Coast way of football, and I know that they somehow, I don't know what it is with this San Francisco team. They make every single player who's in a viable position become fantasy relevant. They just squeeze everything out of them, and I think that I think that Lance, with his rushing outside and his cannon of an arm and the weapons he has around him, he's going to blow up when he ends up getting the chance to play.
Adam, do you think Trey Lance is more valuable down the road than Justin Fields, even though Fields might be starting earlier?
To me, no, but I see it. To me, I think they have similar upside. And I understand trusting the 49ers organization much, much more than the Bears, because that's why I picked Wilson in the first place. So I'm definitely with you there. But I think in terms of upside, I think Fields has a similar, if not stronger arm. I think he's a better runner. And, so upside-wise, I think you could, at the very least, that's a toss-up. And then obviously Fields has a little more short-term value. But I can't, like I said, I can't knock going with Shanahan over Nagy, because that one's right.
I just say, I think the situation's better, but at the end of the day, I'd be happy if I had Fields too. One or the other. But it doesn't matter to me, really. Mm-hmm. They're both excellent quarterbacks, and I think they're going to be good with the system they're in.
You're just going for more of the upside down the road. Chris is smiling at me because he's waiting for me to go off. I told you last show, I went on my last tirade on Trey Lance, okay? My heart can't take it anymore on how bad of a pick that was for the 49ers. Terrible. Not a bad pick there by Chad, but a bad pick by the 49ers. So that's
Chad didn't trade 3 number ones for it, so that's the difference.
Well, exactly, and that's I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the computer right after him took Devonta Smith at the 109, which I think is great value. Again, I'm going to have some numbers because we're going to talk about the Eagles on Friday, Chris, and their draft recap. So I don't want to give it all away now, but Devonta Smith is in the best position that he possibly could be, at least especially right early in his career, because he found himself in a situation where he gets to play the slot receiver, but more importantly than playing the slot receiver necessarily, he gets to be the guy that they utilize and feature and move all around. That's exactly what Devonta Smith needs. He can't be the guy who lines up, whether it's just in the slot all the time or one side of the perimeter. He's a guy you have to line up in multiple positions. You have to motion him. He's in the offense that should be setting him up to do that. While I'm not a big Jalen Hurts fan, I do look at Jalen Hurts as a poor man version of Justin Fields, where I trust you to do 2 things. I trust you to either hit your number one or to run. And I trust him to do that, and I trust him to do that within the intermediate to short part of the field, which, again, is what he's going to be doing with Devonta Smith most of the time. So I'm finding myself, I was knocking head and shoulders all the time, especially going to the NFL draft, that Jalen Waddle's better. And I do think he's better. But for a fantasy standpoint, Devonta Smith fell into the better situation. Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, I think if you're comparing the 2 players, absolutely. Smith is in a better situation. You look at Waddle has to compete with target-wise. I mean, you've got Will Fuller they added this offseason. You already had Devontae Parker in place. You have Gesicki. They like to use their running backs. So, I mean, in the offense, we're still have to actually see what Miami actually kind of runs as well. We're not really sure kind of offenses is going to look like with the kind of dual coaches on offensive coordinators. And I think you have a very clear cut what the Eagles are going to do. The only thing I'm curious about for the Eagles is, while I'm excited for him to be able to move around with that coaching staff, we saw, Indianapolis doesn't necessarily use the receivers a whole lot and haven't seen a lot of fantasy relevant guys over the last couple of years. I know T.Y. has been banged up, but they haven't really featured, quote unquote, a guy. And they have a pretty good tight end still too, if they keep, Ertz. But if they, with you guys, Dallas Goedert there, I think he's going to be the guy who's going to eat most of those targets in the offense.
The next pick was Javonte Williams at the 110. I actually have a poll out right now. It just came out a few hours ago, so we're still early on in the voting, but it was about 70%. The poll itself was, who are you going to draft first in 2021, Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon? Right now, it's sitting at 70% in favor of Javonte Williams, which surprised me a little bit because I expect this to be a split. I would expect because he's a rookie, Melvin Gordon will get more closer to a 55, 45, 60, 40 split in his favor, at least early on in the season. I can definitely, of course, see Javonte Williams taking over later on. Yes, Williams is going to be a great guy moving forward. We know he's going to be a 30 down back. But Adam, I'm going to kick this question to you. Who would you take in 2021 between Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon.
And Melvin Gordon?
Yeah.
Or I think I'd take I'm going Williams because I think he's going to be the one that's going to help me out and when I need it. I think he's going to help me out come playoff time, come trying to play in and win games to get into the playoffs. I will take the guy who's going to be valuable then. I don't really care if Melvin Gordon, gives me this great record the first couple weeks of the season, then my team falls apart. Like, cool, I made the playoffs, but I got torched by 50 points in the first round. So, give me the guy that's going to give me a chance at the end of the season, which is Williams.
So Adam's saying I could sleepwalk my way to the playoffs. I just need somebody to get me over the hump. So, Chad, the next pick was Rashad Bateman, and then while you're talking about that, I'll actually finally make my picks. But Rashad Bateman going to Baltimore, kind of an oxymoron situation, right? Because he has a pathway to be the number one pass catcher almost right away, but on a team that doesn't throw the ball that much. So what's your take on Rashad Bateman going to Baltimore?
You know what? This is in my Dynasty rookie draft this weekend. I was in the 108, and I'm in between. I had to decide between Bateman and, who was it? It would have been someone after. It would have been Carter, actually, or Terrace Marshall. I think that was the next wide receiver up. I chose Bateman. For a few reasons. His age, he broke out at a young age. He's going to be the best wide receiver on that team. And you know what? Before anyone starts saying the Baltimore, I know they don't throw the ball. I know they don't throw the ball a lot. They're one of the least throwing teams in the league. But what happened with A.J. Brown when he entered the league? Exact same thing. Tennessee does not throw the ball, and everyone passed up on that guy, and now he's untouchable in Dynasty. I think Bateman falling to the end of the first round it's a for sure fire hit.
All right, I like the confidence. I like it because I want to get behind Bateman. Bateman was one of my favorite receivers coming in. I kept saying he was going to be the Justin Jefferson of this draft. That's now going to be Devonta Smith because of the situation he fell in. But I want to believe, and this, okay, I know Chris will back me up on this one, and if he doesn't, then he's getting kicked out of the stream. I want to believe that Lamar Jackson's going to truly throw the ball more, and therefore Bateman will actually be a guy who can get around 100 targets, maybe not 2021, but maybe by 2022 at least. Is that the output that you're seeing, Chris, even though it's Greg Roman and his messy history that he has when it comes to calling plays?
Even part of that messy history, Lamar Jackson did lead the league in touchdown passes 2 years ago. So people seem to get that twisted. Touchdowns still count for a lot of points. So whether Rashad Bateman gets a ungodly amount of targets or not, I'm not quite sure, but I think he's going to be highly productive. And I think as a result, he's going to be around. He's going to get close to double-digit touchdown opportunities, and he's going to probably get around 1,000 yards moving forward. This year, I kind of think he's going to be around 800 to 900 yards mark. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more than people think. And I think that you look at the 49ers, when they had Bolden and Crabtree, he utilized both those guys. I think there's opportunity for Andrews to kind of be the key guy they kind of build around. They're going to use Bateman as number one, and you got Marquise Brown kind of taking the top off. I think the Ravens are going to be one of the more explosive teams this year, and I think that they're going to really surprise people when they throw the ball over the field. Lamar Jackson threw a lot in Louisville. People need to seem to forget that this guy's not just a runner.
It's going to be interesting. Even if they go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say on that, I was just going to add that does Lamar Jackson not look like a quarterback who can sustain at least one wide receiver for 1,000 yards? Like he does. Like he is good. He last year was a mess, man. It really was. I think you can look at those last 4 or 5 games, whatever it was at the end of the season, and kind of look at that as what you can average for Lamar, what he's capable of on a week-to-week basis. And what we saw for the first 3 quarters of the season was it was a mess. It really was. It sucked.
Yeah, I'm expecting a big, massive improvement there. The weapons are certainly going to be in place, and it's going to be very interesting to watch. All right, I'm going to unpause the draft while I talk about my 2 back-to-back picks at the 12.
I wonder where he went.
At the 112 and the 2-1. Well, I mean, I had to take Justin Fields. How did he fell to me at 12 in a super flex league? I don't understand. The last quarterback pretty much left on the board there besides Mac Jones. But the reason I go Justin Fields over Mac Jones, of course, is the legs. And you're talking about from a fantasy perspective. And I do believe he's going to start over Andy Dalton week 1. Everyone can say they're hot and blue in the face that Andy Dalton, they're going to let the veteran play it out. No, they're not. Look, do I think the best situation for Justin Fields would have been to sit for at least a few games? Yeah. If you want to save your job, if you're Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, you have to play the rookie quarterback right away. You cannot trade up, make this big pick, and then not play them and then think you're still going to have a job, because then you're still just making your way for the next regime to come in. Chris, I know you're saying that's the Bears, so anything's possible. I get it. I can tell it from the face. I understand.
Look at the track record. Mike Lennon, Nick Foles. That's all I'm going to say.
But Trubisky started right away.
No,
I expect the same.
Mike Lennon. Go ahead.
Mike Glennon started for one game, literally one game. And I don't even think it takes that for Fields to get on the field. So
I feel like it would be at most that, really.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And again, the thing that I expect expect here is that I trust Justin Fields to do two things: hit his number one read, aka Allen Robinson, and to take off and run. From a fantasy perspective, that's all I need you to do. That's all I need you to do. My second pick, and I'll pause it here for you guys because I want to make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. The second pick, I went with Michael Carter. The second, top of the end of the second round, best running back I have left on the board. You know how I am with gets the running backs in dynasty leagues, so they're so much harder to find than wide receivers. Michael Carter fits the system, the Jets, perfectly. I don't know if he has a particularly long career, but I do think this is a guy for the next 3 to 4 years, especially this year, starting this year, is the number one talented running back on the New York Jets in a great, great system. I'm going to take that, his explosive ability, and what he's going to be. Adam, what do you think of my two picks?
Great. In that same draft where I took Waddle at 12, and when I said I traded back to get 12 and 201, I also went Carter at 201. So great minds think alike. I think he's tremendous value there, getting someone who actually has the chance to get the lion's share of the rushing attempts. And the second round is, that's fantastic value. And of course, getting a quarterback at the end of the first round, and one with rushing ability to boot, is, nuts. So value wise, that's stellar. That's what you're aiming for.
Thank you. Okay. So the next pick was computer. I do want to get into a little bit. Because they went with Trey Sermon at the 202. Now, this wasn't a bad pick, so I don't want people to take this the wrong way that I'm knocking an incapacity, but there's been a surge of Trey Sermon media narrative out there lately, and I want people to cool their boots just a bit, because a lot of the talk has been, oh, we love Trey Sermon because what he might be in 2021. We don't know if, Raheem Mostert's going to make the team or Jeff Wilson's going to play. Or Trey Sermon, yeah, I've heard that out there. Trey Sermon is the third string running back, guys. So this new narrative that's been out there over the past 5 days, I would say now, I've been hearing it. This idea that he's going to be somehow in 2021 the lead 49er back, that's not going to be the case just because they traded up for him. It was still the third round. All right, that's good draft capital. It's not automatic starter capital. People are getting carried away with Shanahan, the running scheme, and the new running back in town. He's not even only the new running back in town. Chad, what do you think about this? Yes, I think this was a good pick for Trey Sermon in Dynasty, but what do you think about Trey Sermon in 2021?
I think that this is going to be a test year to see if he can show up and fill that Raheem Mostert role, then I don't see why they wouldn't give it to him. Mostert is 29 years old. He's never played a full season. He really hasn't. But on that note, Sermon's never been a workhorse back. I know the 49ers do not use a 3-down back, but I don't see Sermon taking on a massive load year in and year out. And I don't know. I think he's that dark horse picked in this draft. He's either going to be gold or he's going to be a nice flex player.
He also doesn't catch the ball, which goes back to my point of he's not playing ahead of Jeff Wilson, because Jeff Wilson pass blocks and catches the ball. No, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year specifically is going to be really hard to kind of gauge what Sermon's value is going to be. I think moving forward, though, they did seem to target him. Doesn't mean necessarily, I think, for Kyle Shanahan, he targeted other running backs. I mean, the Williams kid out of Utah a couple of years ago didn't even make the team. So he does, have his favorites for per se. But, kind of everybody's kind of speaking upon in that 49er backfield, you never know who's going to start from week to week. It's kind of similar to New England in a lot of ways. And that's why I just don't like to – I think they have value, but I'm not going to be the one who jumps on that grenade necessarily.
Adam, Terrace Marshall might have been one of the greatest benefactors of this draft in my estimation, because he needed to go somewhere specific. And he goes to his old offensive coordinator in Joe Brady. He goes to a situation that plays a lot of receivers to begin with, has an opening for that third receiver, and not to mention a third receiver in the slot. Guess what, guys? I'm gonna let y'all know right now. Terrace Marshall's playing the slot in 2021. All right, he's not playing the perimeter. It's not going to be. He's going to be in the slot. You're going to see DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson on the outside because Joe Brady knows that's where he needs to play to be at his best. So, Adam, when you look at this, when you look at the Sam Darnold situation, the Panther situation, the Joe Brady situation, what is your outlook for Terrace Marshall this year and beyond?
Yeah, so I think that this is entirely dependent on two things. It's really obvious. What is Sam Darnold? I wasn't high on him as a prospect the first time, and I'm certainly not high on him now. But if that works out, if you can fix him, then I think the sky's the limit with him because we know what Joe Brady can do. We know what this offense can do otherwise. But we know what it did with Teddy Bridgewater, who's also not the greatest quarterback in the world. So I definitely think that he's an upside player in regards to his situation with Sam Darnold and in regards to him himself. He's someone who I thought was a little on the raw end, but has the physical tools to be a really special player. And then the other big factor there, like obviously other than his development, is what if Joe Brady's a head coach next year somewhere else? The things change very rapidly there if someone else who runs a different type of offense that maybe, doesn't feature three receivers comes into town. And, that could be – it's a situation that could go a lot of different ways, but I think chasing the upside on him makes a lot of sense in the second round. But, I do think there's a lot of ways that could backfire very quickly.
All right, so Team 9, the computer player, went with Dwayne Eskridge. All I'm going to say to that is Dwayne Eskridge is a bum, never going to see the field. So we're going to take this right over to Chad, who went with Rondale Moore. Love the pick, Chad. Tell me about that pick. What was your mindset there?
Oh, the kid's a beast, man. Like he squat like 6,000 pounds now? I don't know. Like I saw a comp. Like the guy he's built like DK Metcalf, but the guy can run around like a mouse, man. Like I'm excited to see if they can utilize him properly on this team because I think he could get some. I think he gets some targets from out of the backfield as well. I don't see Edmonds and Connor like the best backs to lead this team, but he's also powerful enough and fast enough where that Isabel project didn't work, so he'll easily. I think he can easily surpass Isabel and Kirk. I think he's like it's there. But in saying that, Hopkins still is the number one guy. Like I'm not putting Rondale Moore above him whatsoever. And then it's going to cap his upside for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see when this is going to be an interesting situation for me to project later on because I'm looking at this as for 2021. I don't know how much he gets involved right away. I think a lot of it's going to depend on does AJ Green have anything left? Because I think right now, as it stands, their ideal, what they're going for anyway, I don't know if it's their ideal situation. What they seem to be shooting for at the moment is DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, and then Christian Kirk finally getting his opportunity to play in the slot. Now, we'll see. If AJ Green has nothing left, I would foresee Kirk getting kicked back out the perimeter and then Rondale Moore gets to take over the slot job this season, which I think would probably be their more ideal situation. But for 2022, AJ Green won't be there. Very good chance Christian Kirk's not there. So for 2022, we're looking at Rondale Moore as a second fiddle in a pass-heavy offense to DeAndre Hopkins and in a situation where he'll get to play inside, outside, get to move around. Love his athletic ability. I don't think the 5'7" thing is going to hurt him, even though there's not a lot of precedence for it. But, Chris, where are you at with Rondale Moore to the Arizona Cardinals? We're actually going to talk about a little bit of this on Friday, too.
I mean, I think Kyler Murray's the same height, so they can see each other pretty easily. That should be fine. No, I look at his situation. I think as long as you have Kingsbury there as the coach, I mean, Adam kind of touched upon, where Brady is for Carolina next year. I'm curious to see how this team kind of unfolds. But as long as you have Kingsbury as the coach, they love throwing 5-yard option routes. It's one of their key staples of their offense. And with Fitzgerald being pretty much done, it's going to depend to me for this year. It's going to depend on does AJ Green play the slot. If he just plays the slot, then you have more kind of struggle. But if Moore is a slot receiver in that offense, I don't think Christian Kirk's going to have a chance versus him. I think they pretty much made their point by taking Moore that Christian Kirk isn't our future, isn't a guy we plan on bringing back next year and re-signing. And I don't think he's going to get the first shot. I think once Moore's out there, you're going to see him use a lot of gadget plays, but I think he's going to be featured. I mean, Kyler Murray's going to have guys to look for that can get in and out of his brace really quickly. They love the res of his 5-yard option routes, like I said. So I think PPR-wise, he's going to be a monster. I'm curious about how many yards he actually gets and touchdowns, because we saw DeAndre Hopkins kind of get capped by that last year as well. But the targets should be there.
This team 7 that's sandwiched in between Chad and Adams off to a pretty good start. They Kyle Pitts to come back with Amon St. Brown, who I really like a lot because he's in a great situation, especially when talk about rookies and what their immediate impacts would be. He's got to be right up there at the top with the targets that he may get to see in Detroit. What do you think about St. Brown, Adam, when he got to go to Detroit there and his opportunity?
Yeah, he's someone I'm targeting for sure. But it's got to be someone you're careful with, right? Because I have seen a lot of teams reaching on him for that situation. At the end of the day, he's not a better talent than a Terrace Marshall and Elijah Moore to me. And I've seen people taking him because of that situation, because you can pencil in Amon St. Brown as the day one starter in the slot in Detroit, and Jared Goff loves his slot receivers. That's why McVay filled the team with them. But yeah, I think he's going to be highly productive early, which is great. But I have seen people reach on him. That being said, at 2.6, I think it's very fair game. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I have to say so as well. All right, talk about your pick at the 2.7.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, to me, that's a value pick. I was eyeing Moore and some other players, but at the end of the day, like I feel like this is a super flex league. I feel like I'm set now at my 2 quarterback positions, the 2 highest scoring positions, to get someone who I think will very likely be a starter this season at some point in the second round at quarterback, who I think is pretty good player, first round caliber player or quarterback. Yeah, I'm taking that every time.
I think Mac Jones would be the starter week 1. Why mess around? You know what offense you're going to be down the road. Why be a completely different offense from what you were obviously at some point going to get back to? Your roots are dug into with Josh McDaniels. The pocket passer, throw it around is what he does. It's what he's always looked for. I don't know why bother at this point even wasting your time with Cam Newton. It's not like you have a big financial commitment to him. So I don't know if it's going to work out that way. But in my mind, logically, it makes more sense that Mac Jones is a starter week 1 for New England Patriots. And you know what? I'm good with that. He has his nice security blanket in the tight ends. I don't really love his wide receivers, but we've seen crappy wide receivers perform okay in the Patriots system before, Josh McDaniels system before. So it could be something at least serviceable in the meantime. And of course, I love his down the road. I thought this Mac Jones screams New England Patriot. I thought it was a great fit for him. I think he's going to be a great pick. Chris, let's talk about your pick at Elijah Moore at the 2.8. That's a nice thing. If this wasn't a super flex league, I know Adam would have took him. But let's talk about Elijah Moore there at the 2.8.
I mean, when I looked at the board, I was kind of hoping I would have the Jones fall to me, but of course, Adam did a smart pick. But in retribution, I made sure I would get a guy that he's definitely would have been interested in taking in the 3rd round. And I saw that after that, I'm not a big Tony fan. I think I made it pretty clear when we had our draft day. And I'm not a fan of him long-term or short-term. So I look at the guy who I think is one of the most talented receivers left on the board for sure. I look at his situation. I think you have Crowder on his last year of his deal. He has a clear opportunity to be the starting slot receiver. And I think when I love Zach Wilson's talent, like I talked about before, I think you put those 2 guys together and you're going to have magic moving forward.
Yeah, I love the long-term outcome of it. Chad, I'll ask you this question. Do you think because of the contract situation, even though salary cap-wise they can afford it, do you think the Jets will cut Jamison Crowder and allow Elijah Moore to start right away?
Oh, absolutely. I think once it gets a little bit closer to the season, isn't it after June 1st, I believe, if they cut someone?
Yeah, after June 1st. But even then, he's still only guaranteed $1 million. It's an $11 million contract. But even they can still get out of it without taking that cap hit outside of $1 million. But on the flip side, they have enough cap room. So it's kind of a question of that. But you believe they would?
I don't see why not. They're already... at the beginning of the year, they said they were fine using Sam Darnold. Look what happened a month and a half later, right? Like I think it's just coach speak. I think they'll cut him. I think they're going to say they're going to keep him out, and then they'll eventually cut him once they see more of what Elijah Moore can do. It really depends on him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree with that. It could be a move just like, hey, you know what? We want to get our future moving here. Let's get our young guys the playing time now. I can't disagree with that. It's just a very interesting situation because everyone's already like got the axe out for James Crowder, but it's not a team that's hurting for cap room. It's just rare you see that kind of situation, and that's why I thought it was kind of interesting. I'm just going to read off some of what the computer's doing. They went with Darius Toney with the next pick. We don't have to talk about any more about that. Pat Freiermuth goes with pick team 3. Say that again. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Kenneth Gainwell for a little bit, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Adam, I'll kick this one to you. First of all, team 2, Najee Harris, Kenneth Gainwell, not a bad move that they're doing there. But Kenneth Gainwell, do you think he's going to overtake Miles Sanders? Is he going to have his third down role with Miles Sanders? Because you got Nick Sirianni coming from the Colts. They love to run their 3 backs, even though it doesn't make sense all the time. Will he continue to do that? And is Gainwell going to now cut into Miles Sanders' targets year 1 or no?
Targets, maybe. I think targets could go either way. Carries, I don't think there's any real issue there. I think it's going to be a team that runs a ton regardless. He's coming from what the Colts did. And then... yeah, I think it's a good fit for Gainwell just because I think they're so weak at receiver. They can flex him out to receiver and keep both of them on the field, like if they really want to, which, I mean, I would. Why wouldn't you? I feel like he fits in right in about their third best receiver, if not after Devonta Smith. So, yeah, I think he can be productive early, but I don't think if it hurts Sanders, I don't think it's a lot.
Okay. I think it's interesting because Boston Scott was a little bit annoying. Kenneth Gainwell, I definitely think is better than Boston Scott. I just wonder, is this going to be like Jordan Howard gets the touchdowns, Miles Sanders gets between the 20s, and we throw in Kenneth Gainwell like Nyheim Hines just to be annoying whenever the hell we feel like it? Go ahead, Chris. I see you're nodding your head. Give me your 2 cents on that.
That'd be my biggest concern. I mean, you look at what Indianapolis, you had a lot of guys. Marlon Mack was a good pass catcher his rookie year. People seem to forget that. But then he got pigeonholed. And then you have guys like Jonathan Taylor last year who didn't get thrown the ball because he got pigeonholed. You see the Colts like to have some guy that's going to be their clear number, their receiving back per se, and Nyheim Hines seemed to be that guy. I can see that Gainwell can be used very similar in a lot of ways. But I agree with Adam, though. It's going to be dependent on the offense, how creative they are. If they have him out there in different situations, then he's going to be able to utilize him, as a receiver and as a running back. I could see him playing. But if they're going to keep him strictly as a running back, then he might easily become the Nyheim Hines of that team.
Team 1 went back-to-back running back. They went Elijah Mitchell at the 212, which that's a bit of a reach for a 6th-round running back who's going to be the 5th string running back on his team. But follow that up with Ramondre Stevenson, which I think is interesting because I think Sony Michel is getting cut. And I think the Patriots will use 3 backs. So, Chad, with the idea that Sony Michel gets cut, do you think Ramondre Stevenson will have a definitive role with the Patriots, with Damian Harris, with James White, or do you think he's probably a year away from getting a true chance?
I think he's a year away from you being able to put him in your fantasy roster. I think he's going to see the field throughout the year, but I don't think he's going to start the season off strong. I don't think he's just because not that he can't, but he's not going to be given a chance. I don't think. I feel like that's a crowded running back room there.
Yeah, the only pathway I see is if Bill Belichick's having flashbacks to LeGarrette Blount in the back of his mind and decides Ramondre Stevenson, you get the ball every time you're within the 5-yard line kind of deal. That's the only way I see it early on. I do think he's a year away. Go ahead.
Yeah, but in saying that, this is a big reason why I avoided him around this point in my draft is because it was a PPR league for that. This is half PPR too. Like he's not going to get any of those targets.
No.
He's going to be that goal line back, and when it comes to points per reception, that's great for standard. I would target him if this was a standard league, but points per reception, I'm glad someone else took him.
Yeah, and with the Patriots too, I mean, a lot of my value that was hindering on Damian Harris this year went out the window the second they decided to bring James White back.
Yes.
Like, they just refused to let anybody else have that 3rd down role. It's absolutely ridiculous. Next up was Diami Brown, Nico Collins, and then Kylan Hill. Some interesting moves there. Let's get over to Chris, who took Dez Fitzpatrick with his pick, and I'll resume it so Adam can make his draft pick.
Well, yeah, you didn't pause for my draft, so it was my auto draft, by the way. But anyway.
My bad.
It's all good. Um, but I don't mind the pick. I don't mind the pick. It was in my queue, so I understand. No, I'm actually a Des Fitzpatrick fan. A lot of people have like kind of doubted what the Tennessee's doing at the receiving, especially particularly in this draft. I think people are going to be underestimating this guy. I liked him in Louisville a lot. He's a big, strong guy. He's able to get down the field. He can remind me a lot of Corey Davis in a lot of different ways. I think what he can kind of bring to the offense. And I don't think he's necessarily going to be a stud this year, but I do think that he can be that easy number 2 receiver. They cut Humphreys. They really have a clear cut. They have Josh Reynolds. But I'm not super impressed. I'm not really vested in him necessarily either. And I look at Fitzpatrick. I think he's a little bit better than Josh Reynolds, but I think he brings a lot of similar things. Big, tall guy you kind of use in the red zone. And I think that moving forward, he's going to be the number 2 to A.J. Brown.
Well, that's why I thought you legitimately made that pick, because honestly, I was going to say in the third round there for Fitzpatrick, for a guy who truly might be the number 2 on a team that will get some value to the number 2 receiver. It's a great move, and it's a great situation that he wound up in, and he fits perfectly with A.J. Brown, right, Adam?
Yeah, I think that is a good fit for him. That's somewhere I've been eyeing on, like, well, okay, what receiver is going to land here? And I think this is an interesting one because you're going to get a sleeper who potentially, can be that wide receiver too, like you mentioned.
Breaking news.
I want to give one more shout out to Manscaped. This is your public service announcement and the news you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is now available for purchase in the USA and in Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. You get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. And what makes this trimmer different than all the others? How about a new multifunction on-off switch, which can engage a travel lock so it doesn't go off while it's in your bag? Created for everybody who travels all the time. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn on the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And the new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim all over through additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4. So just go there and get the new product, manscaped.com, promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off and free shipping on your purchase today. I personally, just to give you guys a mental image, like to go for the pizza slice. It's very it's very quaint and it's very original. I know. So let's go. Adam made your next pick. Talk about your pick, Adam.
Yeah, I went back with a guy that I got him in the 5th round of our last draft. So a clear landing spot, changing things quite a bit. So it's a situation where I know right now that he's not going to be a top 2 receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. But that being said, I love Amir Smith-Marset, and I feel very confident about him becoming that 3rd receiver. And with his skill set, I think he's someone that can come in when they need 3 wide receiver sets and be a versatile guy. But I also think they can bring him in to just kind of attack down the field. And if that's the case, he won't need a ton of volume to be relevant. I feel relatively confident that at least by next year, if not the back half of this year, that he's going to be someone I can feel okay with as like a flex guy. And if that's what I'm getting in the 3rd round, I can take that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the question here from a dynasty standpoint is that when Adam Thielen moves on, does Marset take over? They go a different direction. Chad, do you think Marset is good enough to take that job, hold on to that job so they don't go after somebody else when Adam Thielen moves on, maybe by next season?
I'm not ready to make that call yet, but I don't fault that pick whatsoever, because if he is ready to fill that role in a year or 2, he's going to be a great asset to have.
Yeah, I agree. Team 7 continues to impress me as a computer here. Amari Rodgers going right in between Adam and Chad here. Amari Rodgers, I'm going to kick this to Chris because he's in a very similar situation as Dre Fitzpatrick, where he could theoretically be the number 2 as kind of a slot guy in a situation, but it's going to really greatly depend, does Aaron Rodgers stay there or not? But just speak to what Amari Rodgers, what you think his role in Green Bay could be, maybe in the near future rather than down the road.
I mean, I think he definitely is going to be a top 3 receiver, if not the number 2. All I keep hearing out of Green Bay is this guy's that he compares to Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb himself compared him to this player and said he's actually more talented than he was coming out. Now, I don't necessarily think he's going to have a career Randall Cobb is because I think Randall Cobb is actually more talented, but I do see the opportunity. You look at Green Bay's receiving corps; it's pretty pathetic after Adams. Adams is a free agent next year, so there's even a chance that he could be number 1 or number 2 going into next year. So I think he's a great value, and it's a guy that you kind of as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, he's definitely going to have value this year. Long term, maybe Rodgers isn't there, but he's still going to be one of the higher guys, on the totem pole in a sense, because if from everything I'm hearing, Devontae Adams isn't necessarily going to be there. If Jordan Love's his quarterback next year either. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how things unfold in Green Bay. And this guy's got opportunity to play sooner than later.
Everyone except for the GM of Green Bay hates Jordan Love. It's incredible what's going on in that organization right now. Just absolutely hates him. Chad, you went with Josh Palmer at the 3-8. Great pick. I actually just had a rookie draft myself for a Dynasty league I've been in for a few years now, and I just took Josh Palmer right around the same territory. So go ahead and talk about Josh Palmer to the Chargers.
I just think he's moving into he could be potentially moving to Mike Williams' position here once this year's up. Mike Williams' contract's up. He's constantly injured himself. I don't think he's performed to what they are expecting of him in that role, which is why they went ahead and made this pick. That coupled with them beefing up their O-line to being one of the best in the league now, this guy potentially over the next few years with having Herbert throw that ball, he can potentially be a really, really, really good 3rd or late 2nd round pick in rookie drafts here.
Yeah. Look, Josh Palmer, they're going to be in a system where that back end wide receiver really has a particular role. And I'll let Adam kind of finish this off with Josh Palmer because I got to need to make my pick in 10 seconds. So Josh Palmer, what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think, what distinguished between me for Smith Marset and Josh Palmer is that I think Smith Marset is going to have a better 2021, but absolutely that upside of taking Mike Williams' role in the future, which I agree. I think that Mike Williams' time in LA now is going to be about coming to the end. I'd like the upside long term with him. I'm just worried that Palmer and Guyton right now are going to in 21 split that deep threat role until they get rid of Mike Williams. And then once they do, I love Josh Palmer's value. It's just a matter of his 21 value, potentially not being great. But
sure, and I did make that pick thinking that I don't intend to use him in 2021. He's a long-term project there. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Look, there's a scenario. Mike Williams hasn't been the most healthy. I think he's got to take a step up to keep his job. Yeah, Palmer definitely has more of the value for 2022. He's much better than Guyton, but he's going to have that similar type of role where he's going to be the deep field threat. Especially in the backside of Keenan Allen. So, and I think he might be better suited than Mike Williams for this system to play that downfield role opposite of Keenan Allen. So, I truly, truly love the pick. After that, I'm trying to see it now, Brevin Jordan went with Team 9. Jalen Darden went. Cornell Powell went. That's going to be an interesting one in some senses. And then I was up. I kind of screwed up on my 4th round pick. It's not really what I wanted to go with, but we'll fly with it. Because I actually wanted to go with who Chad wound up taking, but Khalil Herbert. I love me some Khalil Herbert, especially when we get into the late end 3rd round here, 4th round. Going to be the number 2 behind David Montgomery. I've talked about this guy before. I think he has great vision. I think he breaks tackles very well. I think he explodes the line of scrimmage well. He's got a lot of work to do when it comes to pass blocking, catching the ball out of the backfield. There's no doubt about that. And he's going to be more of a primary 1st down, 2nd down, goal line guy until he's able to develop that part of his game. But I do wonder, David Montgomery definitely staying healthy an entire season after a heavy workload. And I do wonder if the Bears are definitely going to bring back Montgomery after this season as well. So I think there's some upside here with a Khalil Herbert, who I think has a lot of talent. And I was going into this season thinking that there's no chance Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are still there. Maybe after this draft has changes, I don't know. But kind of going off of the hope that the coaching regime was also going to change with Herbert getting a chance. Adam, tell me what you think about Herbert.
Yeah, I like him. He's definitely in that either at the bottom of that 2nd tier running backs to the top of the 3rd. I think in the short term, his skill set is one that he could maybe steal some carries from Tariq Cohen, not like his rushing use, not his receiving use. And then long term, the next regime, we just saw it with James Robinson. Those middle of the road running backs are pretty easy to move on from, so that you could see them keep the next regime keep Tariq Cohen in that third down role, and then slide in Herbert as the the main running back. So yeah, I think in terms of the long-term value, there's good value there.
Tommy Tremble, I'll kick this to Chris, because who else would I kick this to? With Tommy Tremble, hey, you know what? I think he's going to be a starter day one. I do. I don't know how big of a fantasy impact he's going to have, but I think he's going to be the starter day one in Carolina over that bum of an Ian Thomas. He's going to block.
How many catches did Randy Moss's son catch again in college?
Hold on. I heard somebody, I'll let you speak in a minute. I heard somebody say Tommy Tremble reminded them of Janu Smith. Now, even I had to laugh out loud to that, but I said even I had to laugh out loud to that. Yeah, I agree. But the logic behind it was Janu Smith came out, could block, got on the field because he had the athletic skill set, got utilized in the red zone, and then developed from there. Now, I think Tommy Tremble is more athletic than people want to give him credit for. I don't think he can run routes worth a lick. I'm not going to get crazy here, but I do believe he could be somebody who gets utilized well in the red zone, especially with his blocking ability. So Tommy Tremble as a sleeper tight end who might play day one in the 4th round. Go ahead. What do you think?
I mean, he wouldn't be my tight end on the board. We already had that discussion and argument. However, I don't think it's a bad pick if you value him. I do think he has some upside, like you're kind of talking about. He reminds me of other Notre Dame tight end in a lot of ways. I think he's Kyle Rudolph. I mean, I think he's going to have some relevance, and I don't think he's going to be a star tight end, but I think he's going to have some years where he has double-digit touchdown opportunities. Maybe he gets you 700-800 yards, and then the tight end position, you're just trying to find somebody to throw out there, particularly long-term. I think when you look at this draft, you have a guy who's definitely going to be on the field because he can block. And you've seen different guys kind of step up recently. They kind of came in that role. So Will Dissly have a decent year. You saw Drew Sample have some decent games. So I think you're going to see a guy who's going to be out on the field a lot, has a chance. And you said, he's a pretty good athlete. He'll be using the red zone. I just have some questions as long as, Joe Brady is the coach there and offensive coordinator. Like I said, how many catches did Randy Moss's son have in LSU? And
he was utilizing the red zone. That's all I need. He was utilizing the red zone.
And that's why I give you that. I definitely going to have a guy you're going to see using the red zone. And the comps of Janu Smith I just think are asinine, but everything else I agree.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that because I wanted to see your reaction. I heard that the other day. I was like, all right, I like Tommy Tremble.
They're not even built close to the same. That's the problem. Look at their bodies here.
It's just insanity. The next couple of picks went off: Jamie Newman, then Kyle Trask, Larry Roundtree, and then we get the Chad's pick, Chuba Hubbard, backing up Christian McCaffrey. I wasn't the hugest Hubbard fan during the draft process. However, he has a particular skill set, and he's by far the best running back backing up Christian McCaffrey. And we saw this past year, Christian McCaffrey is mortal. So, Chad, take me through the process of taking Chuba Hubbard there in the 4th round.
Yeah, I'm at this point in the draft now. I'm picking players who I think can be a lotto ticket. I'm not too concerned unless someone with an excellent draft capital falls, then I'm going to target them. But if not, then I'm going with guys like I chose Hoover because of the fact that he is the clear-cut backup for Christian McCaffrey. And I know he didn't have a great year going into the NFL because of injuries, but the year before he was awesome. He was electric, and I think he's going to surprise people if he ever gets the chance to do. If CMC ever has to sit out a game, then he's going to be just fine out there. And hopefully, with this pick, my hope is that when they do move on from CMC, then he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Hubbard does have a track record of production coming out of college. There's no doubt about that. Had the 2,000-yard season. There's always been a void of talent behind Christian McCaffrey until Mike Davis last year. We saw what Mike Davis was in that system. So that all kind of plays into it. That's why Hubbard was one of the guys that I was actually looking at when I had to take Tommy Tremble with the clock running out on me. But it is an interesting situation where I value him more in that than I would normally. And if you're able, don't worry, Chris, I'm going to pause it. If you're able to draft him and you're not the Christian McCaffrey owner and McCaffrey does go down, you will be able to hold him for a high ransom. I don't think this gets talked about enough. A high ransom in a trade midway through the season, because that person's going to want Hubbard badly from you and probably willing to overpay in that instance. So it's also a pick that I could see you flipping in the future. Something that we don't talk about enough just in the fantasy industry in general, trading. And it's all about taking your guys and figuring out what value they have. But how about taking, and I talk to Chris all this time, we play in a couple home leagues together. Number one thing I do is I draft on value. I don't draft based on what I need to fill up my roster, because I know I'm going to have assets that I'm then going to be able to flip, and I'm going to be able to put out my roster that way. Just keep remembering, you don't win your league on draft day. It's going to be what moves you make during the season. That's going to dictate whether or not you win. That's true for Dynasty, redraft, doesn't matter what the format is. The only format that it's not true for is best ball, because that's all about the draft. All right, so next picks up, we had Adam and Chris. Adam, go ahead with your Tutu Atwell pick. Actually, I'm gonna hit this real quick because I'm probably gonna disagree with you.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, state your case, Adam.
I don't know if we're going to disagree too strongly
no,
here.
Probably
this
not
is just
too strongly.
a case of I like the talent and I like the draft capital. I hate the landing spot a lot. This is a crowded receiver room, and I joked about it earlier in the stream. It's full of slot receivers, and that's exactly what he is. So his path to the field is going to be a tough one. If I had to wager how this is going to work out, is as a rookie, he will be a gadget player, which is no fun. But hopefully, maybe they'll give up on Van Jefferson, or, stop paying Cooper Kupp or something. As Chad said, in the fourth round, mid-fourth round at that, I'm just trying to, take my lottery ticket. And this is, again, a guy with second-round draft capital at a skill position that I'm getting in the fourth round of this Dynasty draft, that I liked the talent on going into this draft. I picked him, I believe, in our last draft, I got him in the third, and I was happy then. So in the fourth, even with the bad landing spot, I'm happy now.
The draft capital argument is the only argument that I will accept at all for drafting Tutu Atwell in any capacity. This is not a good football player at all. There's a special teams guy who went to a situation where I don't know if maybe they're already done with Van Jefferson, who I wasn't a big fan of last year, their second round wide receiver pick either. But that it's going to have to take them moving on from somebody for him to actually be anything in the NFL, especially with the Rams of all teams, especially going in the second round of all teams. The draft capital is the only reason why I think he has any chance to even see the field. This guy, everybody wants to knock Rondale Moore for this guy's even smaller, and he's not even nearly as built. The speed is there, but again, I see nothing more than a special teams player. Best case scenario, he's an Andrew Hawkins, and I don't see how that type of player sees the field for the Rams. Go ahead, Chris. I see you rolling your eyes at me.
I mean, I think I have a little haterade there. I think that is actually a really good pick by Adam there. I think that you absolutely look at a guy who has upside. He's got a lot of talent. He's not your typical little midget receiver. This guy is good. I mean, you watch Louisville games the last couple of years. He dominates some good. You can shake your head all you want. He dominated out there. I mean, you look at what he did statistically. He definitely did, and he can get out of his breaks. He's quick. He's not a big guy, but in today's NFL, it doesn't necessarily matter. And I think that when you look at clear-cut opportunity for the field, I think the Rams have made it clear that they're going to move on one of the receivers. That's what the Rams do. They move on from a player every couple of years. We saw Brandon Cooks get traded. We'll see Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods get traded next year. And I think Atwell will be the guy who moves forward.
If Atwell replaces one of those two, that's going to be a catastrophe. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Well, I would agree with Jared Goff is still the quarterback, but I don't think he is. I believe there's just another guy named Matthew Stafford's the quarterback who takes shots down the field, and it's like having a speed guy who can get down that field. He's an opportunity to be. Yeah, I think you're hating. I think you're going to eat your words in 2 years. I'm just telling you that right now.
Yeah, I feel pretty safe about it. Go ahead, Chad.
Okay.
I was gonna say it too. I got a strange feeling that he's gonna be used a lot in some checkdowns. I don't know what it is. I know Cam Akers isn't the best at catching the ball, and this guy, he might be utilized in that backfield a little bit.
Yeah, he'll be a gadget player.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I have a feeling he's gonna be everywhere. He really will, and he could have a sneakily good fantasy season I think he can.
He'll be a gadget player, and if anybody knows me well enough, they know my stance on gadget players are fantasy irrelevant because they're never on the field enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what it boils down to me for when it comes to Tutu Atwell. All right, I had to spice it up a little bit. Go ahead, Chris. Talk about your Kellen Mond pick.
I mean, I basically looking at, I think the next best quarterback after the key quarterbacks off the board. I think that when the computer went Trask earlier in the round, and I think they have a guy that, looking at the situation in Minnesota, I don't think Kirk Cousins is necessarily the future. I think that his salary cap number is going to be a pain for them to kind of move forward with.
Sure as heck didn't sound like with all the rumors coming out of the draft, did it?
No, I mean, it was pretty obvious that the Minnesota Vikings were definitely looking to get a quarterback possibly somewhere. And I think that they have this guy in mind. You look at a kind of guy who can fit that system pretty well. He can bootleg, he can throw on the run. He's not a great pocket quarterback, but he can move, and I like the legs. So I like the upside opportunity moving down the field. And I like the offense around him. I mean, it goes Dalvin Cook. You got Jefferson. He's got a nice nucleus that if he does step in and becomes a quarterback in a year or two, I'm looking at a nice little maybe possible gem in this fourth round or fifth round, I should say.
Yeah, I'll talk about Kellen Mond a little bit on pauses so you can make your next pick. Look, everything I heard when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings was that they were going to sit pat, and if Justin Fields fell to them, they were going to take him. And when the Chicago traded up in front of them, that's when they decided to trade back. That was so they were clearly looking at a top-end quarterback. Clearly, the plan is to move on from Kirk Cousins at some point. Do you think Kellen Mond can be the guy, Chad?
No, I don't personally. I think
That's
he's
the correct answer.
Yeah, I think he's going to. I think his purpose is to be a backup quarterback, and he's going to do a good job at that.
I agree with that.
I don't think.
I just don't think that
he's. Yeah, I just don't think that he's the guy who's going to replace Cousins. Personally, I think if they're going to replace Cousins, they're going to pick someone who will be able to go right into that role and be able to produce day one.
It's a playoff team, and Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know how many years he's going to want to be coaching, to be honest. He's getting up there in age. So I don't see them going through a big rebuild project. And Kellen Mond, he's a guy you take a shot on later in your draft because that's what they did. The nicest way to put it is he's a developmental project. I don't see him ever really getting on the field, though. But in this instance, not a bad pick, Chris, because, yeah, it is clear that Kirk Cousins doesn't seem to be in the future plans necessarily. So let's skip ahead because next string was a bunch of quarterbacks. You had Felipe Franks, of no consequence, Quentin Morris, Sam Engler, and then Davis Mills, which was probably the joke of all jokes in the real NFL draft. So, Chris, let's talk about Tylan Wallace. You going with there in your fifth round pick.
Yeah, I was hoping that Long was going to fall to me there, but once he was off the board, I kind of looked at a player that I want to have the most talented to me. They talked about how your vision is kind of always take the guy with the most talent out there, and I looked at my positions. The only thing that kind of was hard for me maybe was passing on Hawkins because he does have some clear-cut opportunity to play in Atlanta backfield. But I went with the guy who I think is the most talented, and I think that you and I kind of talked off air before about Marquise Brown's future in Baltimore. We're not necessarily guaranteed that we think he's going to get a second year or second contract offer. So I think this guy has actually an opportunity to become the starter at some point, and him and Bateman moving forward have a nice little tandem. And I think he kind of fills that role. He's an explosive player. You can use him in the slot. You can use him outside. So I like the upside opportunity.
Yeah, Adam, you drafted him in our last one, wasn't it you?
Let me double check.
I think it was Adam who drafted
I did
Tylan
not.
Wallace.
I did not. Who did?
Well, regardless, I know that was one of the guys that were on your board. So
yes,
one of my things was Marquise Brown what we talked about last week and Chris referring to may not be there past his rookie contract year, and then it could open the door for Tylan Wallace to be on the other side of Bateman. I think the question is, can Lamar Jackson, can this offense really sustain two receivers? We're already asking the question about one. Can it ever sustain two? Because Tylan Wallace is somebody we're talking about for 2022 and beyond.
I like him, and you're right. It does come down to what happens with Lamar. Like, do they pass more? Does he throw to the outside more? We've seen Mark Andrews in the inside be productive, but nobody, hanging out on the perimeter has been all that productive under Lamar. We are asking the question: will Bateman be able to curb that? And, early on, I think we'll be asking the same thing with Wallace. Now, if Marquise Brown moves on and, they start throwing a little bit more, then maybe you'll see Tylan Wallace, move over into the slot and get some targets there as well. I think he's someone that you, like a Devonta Smith, like a poor man's version, that you move between the two. You'd move them around a lot. So yeah, I think there is long-term value there, but it all depends on if they, if they're like, we want to run Lamar into the dirt, or if we want to like start passing a little more. Because I think Lamar is capable. It's just whether or not they choose to do that with the offense.
Second contract.
And that's what's going to come down to. Does he get the second contract or not?
No, I'm talking about Lamar. I'm talking about Lamar's second contract. We've seen historically, when that running quarterback gets that offer, that big offer, that second year, we see the guys not run nearly as much. We saw Josh Allen not run nearly as much last year. We've seen Carson Wentz not run as nearly as much. We've seen Colin Kaepernick didn't run nearly as much about Greg Roman. And I also question, is Greg Roman going to be there much longer if he doesn't start throwing the ball? Harbaugh doesn't play games with offensive coordinators. People kind of forget about that. He moves on from him if you ain't doing what he wants you to do. And I think that we kind of saw with Morningwig, that's how Roman got his opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of falter and become too run-oriented, and they're not going to have their franchise quarterback. They're paying $40 million running around all the time. There'll be some changes.
The thing is, of the quarterbacks you mentioned, the only one I think that compares is Colin Kaepernick. The rest of them, Lamar Jackson, his game is built on his legs. The rest of those guys, it was a factor, but I wouldn't say that's the first piece of their game. Where it is
Josh Allen, that wasn't the first part of his game. That wasn't Josh Allen's first part of his. Josh Allen.
No, his cannon was his first part of his game, and then his legs.
Yeah.
So
a fantasy worthy. Josh Allen was throwing the ball. That's how he was fantasy relevant before.
You're talking about contract in an NFL standpoint. It's not a fantasy question that you put out there. It's what are they known for? The only one that was known for his legs first, as far as what he brought to the table from an NFL standpoint, was Colin Kaepernick, and he goes with the Greg Roman system. So that's the only part where I would agree with you with. However, even Lamar Jackson is more linked to having to be run first as part of his game. While I agree with you, the idea when you get that second contract, you're more expensive. You don't want to get hurt. I don't think in Lamar Jackson's case, you can totally go away from it. It might be more of a Cam
I'm not
Newton
saying totally
situation.
go away from it. Don't get twisted. I'm not saying they're going to run.
Enough that it would even be significant, in my opinion. I look at it more as like Cam Newton, where it never really went away. It can't ever really go away for Lamar. But I want to get to Adam's pick here. Kylen Granson, tight end, Colts, is an interesting situation with Kylen Granson, depending on what they're going to wind up doing at tight end themselves. So go ahead, get me through the process through that pick, and a nice little sleeper there at 5th round.
Yeah, he is my favorite sleeper tight end now that we've had things work out. Although Team 11's Kenny Yeboah, I don't hate that one either. But yeah, so Kylen Granson, from all accounts, is going to go ahead and fill the Burton role, which, I mean, once again, in the 5th round, I think I can take my chances and take that. And also, really, as a receiving tight end, as we're getting there, Mo Alley Cox is, I think, his biggest, true competition, because at this point in his career, I think Jack Doyle is reverting back to being more of a run blocking tight end than that possession tight end that he was towards the end of the Andrew Luck era. I think he's going to continue to get less and less targets. I don't think Togiai or Jordan Thomas have, I don't think they're real. I don't think they exist. So it's really Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, and Granson. And Mo Alley Cox is someone that I like. I wish they would use him more. They don't. And they, for some reason, I think they like to pigeonhole people. And I think they've somehow reverted him back to being a blocker. He came in, they liked him a lot as a receiver. He got good at blocking, and now they use him as a blocker. And it's so odd to me, but that's how that happens. And I think, you're going to see Granson, who has the size to do nothing but be a move tight end. I think he has to get pigeonholed as the move tight end. And if there's any tight end I want in that offense, it's the move tight end. So really, as long as Ertz doesn't move over to Indy, then I feel really good about that pick. And in the 5th round, I can take that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Chad followed that up with another tight end himself, Jacob Harris, going to the Rams. Chad, take me through that process.
This is my sleeper tight end of the year. This guy, he's a wide receiver converted into a tight end. I think he's going to surprise some people. Everett, sorry, not Everett, Higbee, who's still with the Rams. He is a pass and run blocker first and foremost. I believe he was third. He was the third highest run blocker in the league for tight ends. He's going to keep that role. They're going to have this Harris kid, who is a wide receiver. That's what he profiles as. He's going to be catching those balls. And if I'm going to take a bet on any LA tight end this year, it's going to be Harris.
I like that's another super for a tight end class.
Darren Waller.
Week. Go ahead, Chris.
So Darren Waller. I mean, that's how Darren Waller came into the pro. He got drafted the 6th round. He's converted a receiver. Now he's he's a fantasy stud. So I think that's a hell of a shot take that by Chad took in there. It was a smart move.
Yeah, what I was going to lead it to is for a tight end class that was so weak, because certain ones like Brunson, like Harris, actually fell into certain situations that they did. There's actually a little bit more value later on than I think people realize. So that's very nice picks there at the end that a lot of people aren't really talking about. Yeah, Harris coming in, he fills that Everett role pretty well. Will he get to do in 2021?
Yeah,
maybe to some extent, but down the road will definitely be more of a mindset. I finished it off. I had the last pick of the draft, so Mr. Irrelevant, Anthony Schwartz, the Cleveland Browns. I'm more just going off the idea here that if OBJ's not traded this year, he's gone next year. I don't think Higgins is that great of a receiver. Somebody's going to have to take the top off. I'm going for a home run threat here. I'm more looking at Anthony Schwartz as somebody who I'm hoping I get a couple of games skid out of and then we'll be able to turn around and flip, because there's a lot of people out there who like his electric ability as far as what he can bring to the table and what his role in this offense could be. So let's do this quickly. We'll start with Adam. Give me the best team out of us, not your own. Go.
Dan, you really kill yourself with that Tremble pick. Let me tell you.
The computer. I hate the computer. It really screwed me up bad because I was like, that's not what I wanted to do there.
I think I like your first 3 rounds more, but I think by the end of it, I think I've got to go with Chris, who I think I went with last time. But I think the value of Wallace there at the end, I think the computer did you a lot better with Fitzpatrick than got with Tremble, and the Lawrence Moore pairing is fantastic.
Yeah, I like that too. Chad, who's yours?
Mine is Adams. I love the quarterback in the first 2 rounds there. You're set, like you said. You can easily plug them both in next year to start the season, right? Your wide receiver, Smith, I love the pick. I understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, in my opinion, it's a long-term project. Atwell, awesome pick in the 4th round with his draft capital. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't take it. I was hoping he would come to me in the 5th. That's who I was gonna snag there. But alas, you got him. And then Granson, like you said, I read the same thing about Trey Burton. That he's gonna be filling that role if the coach is not lying to us here. But I will say on that note, though, I just don't feel comfortable with any Indianapolis wide receiver, or I would be more comfortable targeting their tight end than any of their wide receivers. So that's pretty much why I like your team the most. Yeah, I think you're set up for really hit 2021 going good.
Yeah, I'm torn between Chris and Chad. I think I'm going to give the nod to Chris only because he gets Trevor Lawrence at the 5th pick in a super flex, which will be huge down the road. So it's hard to kind of ignore that part of it. Plus, I like Elijah Moore. Plus, I like Fitzpatrick. Yeah. Mon at the 4, Till at the 5. But I really like Chad's draft as well, as far as how balanced it was. He's got a lot of good long-term value. I don't know how much going to help you in 2021, but let's assume if this wasn't a startup and you're picking the 8th spot, you probably have a pretty good team at that point. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. I will give the nod to Chris, though, as far as overall the impact between this year moving down the future and overall like that. So, Chris, now you're last on the board. Who's your favorite, not your own?
This is tough for me because I look at the first 2 rounds and I love yours and Adams' draft right off the bat. I mean, Fields and Carter building around. I think that's a home run there. Adam with the 2 quarterbacks, I think guys who could possibly be the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft, and when it's all said and done. But we guys both kind of lost me in the 3rd round. And then I do like Adams kind of came back in the 4th and 5th round. I wasn't a big fan of your last 2 rounds. And I looked throughout the entire draft, and I actually, while I'm not a big fan of many of the players on his team, I think Chad is going to be the guy I actually go with. I think he has the most depth. I think he has a good starting quarterback. He's got a good organization he's kind of going into. I think Ronald Moore is a steal in the 2nd round. Josh Palmer has opportunity to play not only this year, but moving forward could be easily become a number 2 receiver and possibly even something more than that. Keenan Allen's not super young out there. So it could be interesting. Him and Herbert, they build a rapport, what can kind of happen with them. And then I look at kind of his last 2 rounds, Chuba Hubbard. I don't think Hubbard's necessarily going to replace McCaffrey, but I do think there's a lot of rumors McCaffrey's contract is going to be in some, Carolina might move on sooner than later. And I also think that when you look at just playing together, we saw as long as he's the coach there, off quarter, I should say, that he does use another running back a lot of times. Edwards Hilaire was a running back using LSU. I can see McCaffrey being utilized in different places of the formation, and Hubbard getting an opportunity to get some of the carries. I think that's one of the things they're going to try to focus on is keeping McCaffrey kind of healthy, not giving him so many touches like they have in the previous regimes, and maybe keeping him healthy longer if they're going to keep him. So Hubbard's got some value not just now, down the road, but also I think now some sneaky value for touchdowns especially. And then I look at the last 2 picks. Last pick was Jacob Harris, and I talked about Darren Waller. If we're going to have a guy in the 5th round who hits, it could be this guy who's prototypes a lot like that, the Darren Waller type, big, tall, strong, fast. Didn't really have the body to block necessarily coming out, but we saw Darren Waller. He took him a little while. He got cut from Baltimore. He moved on to Oakland, but all it takes is that right coach to kind of utilize you. As long as Sean McVay's out there and is the coach, we've kind of see the Rams have converted to what their talent basically around them. I think that you look at Matthew Stafford as a quarterback who likes to throw the ball down the field. He likes to throw it to the seam routes. So Ebron be productive. We've seen even Pettigrew has years here and there. So I think Chad overall has the most throughout his entire team.
Yeah, I like it. So Chad and Chris tie for the post-draft rookie draft. We will be back, guys, in 2 weeks. We're going to get into the brainstorm sesh behind the scenes, figure out what we're going to talk about. It's all going to be good, no matter what it is. We'll be back here 8:30 at Belly Up Fantasy on Facebook, on Twitter. What's that?
This is Tommy Tremble, superstar. That's what we're talking about.
Tommy Tremble's Janu Smith. What are you talking about? And that's not even for me.
Exactly.
Tommy Tremble's superstar. So we're happy to have Chad back again. You'll be seeing a lot more of him, and we'll be make sure you're checking us out at Belly Up Fantasy because we have a lot of articles coming out. There's a lot of things to talk about now. The draft is over. The schedule comes out soon. Rankings are going to start to come out. Projections are going to start to come out. Everything. The season's heating up, guys. It's May. We're close. We're getting to summer. Training camps around the corner. Players, and this year, unlike last year, we're actually going to see OTAs. There's going to be information. There's going to be information. You want to stay up with the player news notifications? Follow at Belly Up Fantasy. Follow at Belly Up MDFF Show because they'll be out there 24/7. First, Adam, tell everybody where to follow you at, man.
Yeah, at LaRue Adam on Twitter, LHEUREUX. Adam, it's this backwards but without the apostrophe. It should be pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Chad, where can we check you out?
You guys can find me right. Oh, where? There.
There you go.
There we go.
At FF Coffee Break, and Chris and I will be back from 11 a.m. to 12:30 this Friday. We'll be draft recapping. Let's see if I can remember all 8 teams off the top of my head. The Broncos, Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, Vikings, Chargers, Patriots, and Cardinals. Those are the 8 teams that we are going to be recapping from a fantasy standpoint and giving out. Well, Chris will give out his draft grades from an NFL standpoint as well. So make sure you check that out on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Everybody take care.
Have a good night.